Welcome to today's class. Today we would be understanding the two basic important models for mountain building theory. In the previous class we have talked about the classification of mountains, and that will help us to understand and comprehend these theories today. So the two important theories that we would be discussing are the geosyncline Oregon theory given by Kober, and the next is the plate tectonics theory for mountain building. Once we are done with these two, we would be talking about the Wilson's cycle, and then only we can appreciate the concept of Wilson's cycle. So let's start with the first theory, that's the geosynclinal Oregon theory. This was given by Kober, and the book in which he mentioned this was known as Der Border Eddy. So this is a kind of question that's sometimes asked directly in multiple choice questions. But to understand the theory, let's start with what is geosyncline. So any rigid mass or mobile mass of body which has depositions filled with either sediments or water would be termed as a geosyncline. Now Kober, before starting his theory, mentioned few important terms that we must understand to follow out the processes that were involved in the theory of mountain building, what was propounded by Kober. So Kober first of all explained that geosyncline is an essential condition for a region to develop as mountains, or for the region to develop mountains in and around the area. What is important is a geosyncline. So that was the first thing that he considered. Now he mentioned few important terms. The first was known as Oregon. So when you have a geosyncline here, the mass of the body that is weak is known as origin, and the surrounding mass which is rigid and stable, this region would be known as cartogen. So this region is known as cartogen. Now this origin is usually the weaker region which has faults, fractures, and it's usually the center mass, in contrast to the cartogen which is considered as a rigid mass. Now across the globe he mentioned few primary cartogen areas. These were the Canadian Shield, the region of Canada, the Baltic region in Europe, you have the Siberian region towards north, the peninsular region of India, the Chinese Massive or the Central Plateau region of China, the region of Brazil known as Brazilian Mass, the major central part of Africa known as the African Shield, the Australian and the Antarctic rigid blocks were the regions which were considered as cartogen by Kober. So he talked about origin, he talked about cartogen. The next thing he mentioned was the morphotectonic units. Now these were the units that are prone to tectonic movements, and along these units were the region of mountain building, or the region where mountain building really occurred. So he mentioned the areas as the area of India and Australia, Africa along with parts of Atlantic Ocean and Indian Ocean. You have the area of Russia and Asia, Europe and Asia known as Eurasia. Then you have the North Pacific continent, South Pacific, Northern America, Southern America and Antarctic area. Now let's understand how he tried to explain the concept of mountain building. So when he tried to explain the concept of mountain building, he talked about that mountain building was not an instant process. It was a gradual process, and it occurred around series of periods, that I should say. So he said that mountain building started during the Precambrian period, and there were three mountain building periods that occurred during the Precambrian period. In all, he focused there were 6 mountain building periods. 3 of those lied in the Precambrian period. The next was Paleozoic era, in which you had 2 major orogenesis cycles. One was known as the Varsican cycle and the Caledonian cycle. This occurred during Silurian period, and this during the Permo-Carboniferous period. And finally you have the most recent or the alpine orogeny, which resulted in formation of Himalayas and Rockies. And this was during the tertiary epoch. So these were the basic mountain building periods that were highlighted by Kober. Now let's start with understanding the processes that were given by Kober. To begin with, what Kober said. Kober propounded that there are forces of contraction which occur due to cooling of earth, and these lead to horizontal compression movements, and these horizontal compression movements cause squeezing, and that squeezing results in formation of mountains. That was the basic thing that Kober tried to explain. Now Kober, when he was explaining this concept, he brought about three terms which were most popularly used in and across all theories of mountain building. So he termed the three phases as lithogenesis, orogenesis and glyptogenesis. Now the word genesis itself means formation. So in all the three stages we are talking about formation. Let's move on to each stage one by one. So under the first stage, that was lithogenesis, he talked about that there is contraction of the surface of the earth which is resulting from the cooling of the interior of earth. So due to cooling of earth, what is happening is there is contraction, and this contraction is causing the changes on the surface of the earth. So what is happening is towards the sides where you have the folds or the mountains, those try to scramble down and fall into the geosyncline region, and this is what was termed as lithogenesis by Kober. Now when Kober was explaining the concept of lithogenesis, he explained a very interesting phenomena. He gave two things and he said due to the result of these two things there is increase in the thickness of this mass. And what were those two things? The first was wearing away of the foreland, as you can see. So the mountains are eroding, and that is wearing away of the mountains. So one was wearing away of mountains, and the second was the subsidence of the geosyncline. So you had subsidence of geosyncline, and because of these two, what happened was there was increase in the thickness of this geosyncline mass. So he said there are two forces which act together. One is wearing away of these mountains and the geosyncline going down and subsiding further. Because of this, what happens was there is increase in the thickness of the deposits that occur here, and this was termed as lithogenesis. The next stage he tried to explain was orogenesis. Orogenesis was the actual stage of mountain building where mountain building actually took place. Now to explain orogenesis, let's move on to a simple diagram. What Kober tried to explain. So as we can see, in all of his theories, you have the foreland, you have the marginal land, you have the geosyncline region, again the marginal land and the foreland. So this is, I could say, the marginal land, and this is the foreland or the stable block. We also call it cartogen. And this is the geosyncline region, which is known as orogen. Now, in the process of orogenesis, let's take a very simple example of the Himalayan region. So I could say you have the Tethys river that was flowing. In the south, the land was known as Gondwana land, and in the north, it was known as Angara land. Now this is something we would talk about in detail when we do the class on continental drift theory and plate tectonics. I am just giving you an introduction here. So you had the Angara land in the north and Gondwana land in the south. In the middle there was the river which was flowing, which was known as Tethys. What he tried to explain was, due to the compression forces from both the rigid land masses here, what happened was the development of the filling up of the geosyncline in this region. So this was considered as a geosyncline region, and this region finally filled up with the subsidence and the wearing away of the solid rigid blocks here, that resulted in the formation of Himalayas. Later on he tried to explain that you have the Himalayan mountain range and the Kunlun mountain range, and in between the Himalaya and the Kunlun mountain range you have the Tibetan plateau. So he tried to explain this region as the median mass, and across these median mass you have the forelands or the region of actual mountains. So you have Kunlun mountain range on one side, you have Himalayan mountain range on the other side, and the middle median mass was known as the Tibetan plateau. That is a classic example we can give to understand the Kober's theory. So under the process of orogenesis, as I said, there was convergence of the intensity of compression. So the intensity of compression was very high. As a result, you had formation of huge mountains. So that was his theory of, that was what he propounded under orogenesis. And finally under glyptogenesis, he said you have denudation that is acting, and there is gradual decline or the gradual ascent of mountains that is taking place, which is very gradual, along with the denudation processes that are acting up. So these were the three stages that he tried to explain to help understand the process for orogenesis. So here we can see the region which is marked F is the foreland, as I explained here. Then you have the marginal ranges, which are also known as Rand-Ketton, and finally you have the medial mass between the two ranges, which was known as Duisen-Gibert. So these were the terminologies that were used by Kober to explain the concept and the process of origin of mountain building. Now there were numerous examples that proved that this theory was valid. So if we move across the globe, we will find n number of examples. So let's first start with the Tethys itself, which we were trying to explain. You have the Tethys Sea, you have the Angara land and the Gondwana land. So what he said was, Pyrenees, so Angara land I could mark it as the European landmass, and this would be the Asian African landmass. So what he explained here was the Pyrenees, Baltic, Provence range, Carpathians, Alps, Balkans and Caucasians were the result of northward movement of the African landmass. In contrast to that, Atlas, Alpines, Danrix, Helens and Taurus were the result of southward movement of the European landmass. So within a single process, you had so many mountain ranges that originated. Some of those were the result of southward movement of the European landmass, and some of those were the result of northward movement of the African landmass. So all these resulted due to northward movement of the Asian African landmass, and all these resulted due to the southward movement of the European landmass. So that is one when we talk about the Tethys Sea. We already talked about the Tibetan plateau lying between the Kunlun range and the Himalayan range. Some other examples which are most commonly proved by the Kober's theory are Hungarian median mass, which lies between Carpathian and Danrix. Then you have the Mediterranean Sea that lies between Pyrenees and Provence in the north and Atlas in the south. Then you have the Anatolian plateau that lies between Pontic range and the Taurus range. Iranian Plateau lying between Zagros and Elbrus Range. You have Caribbean Sea lying between Middle America and West Indies, and finally the Basin Range in United States that lies between Wasatch Range and Sierra Nevada. So these are some of the common examples that we can lay down to prove that the Kober's theory was a kind of valid theory in mountain building. But despite of the facts that prove that this theory was considered as the most important and most popular theory among the mountain building theories, there were n number of critics that were raised against this theory. So the first critic said that just the forces of contraction are not sufficient for formation of huge mountains like Himalayas or Alps. So that was the first controversy that it fell into. The next controversy was brought forward by Suess. Suess explained that whenever there is two landmasses that exist, out of these two landmasses, one landmass remains stable while only one landmass moves. So the landmass which is stable is known as foreland, and the landmass that moves is known as backland. So Suess tried to explain that Kober's theory is not valid because it's only the Angara land that is moving while the Gondwana land remains stable. But as and when plate tectonics theory came into discovery, and by the plate tectonics theory it was revealed that all plates move, and it was not only the Angara land that was moving but Gondwana land also started moving. So Kober's theory became valid again after the results that were driven from the plate tectonics theory. Till then, Suess tried to provide a critic for this theory. And finally, all the examples we have discussed so far based on the Kober's theory are all examples of the mountain ranges which run east and west. None of these examples could prove a mountain range that run from north to south. So this was again a major criticism that was driven against the Kober's mountain building theory. Now, intermediate to Kober's theory and plate tectonics theory, there were n number of theories. We would be discussing those theories in the further class. For now, we would be straightforwardly moving to the plate tectonics theory for mountain building, which is considered another major theory in terms of mountain building. Now, plate tectonics, the concept itself we would be discussing in a separate class. So for now, I would be just introducing the three terms that we use under plate tectonics. You have the divergent plate boundaries, you have the transform plate boundaries, and finally the convergent plate boundaries. Divergent plate boundaries are those plate boundaries which move apart. Transform plate boundaries, I could say, run in a parallel fashion. So it's sliding one over the other. It's diverging, that's moving apart. And finally you have the convergent plate boundaries which move towards one another. Now, for mountain building purposes, we just ignore out the transform faults. What we would be including in today's session is the divergent plate boundaries and the convergent plate boundaries. Now, most of the mountains that originated are the result of convergent plate boundaries. We would also understand how divergent plate boundaries lead to origin of mountains. Now, let's first start with the basics of plate tectonics. So, as I said, under plate tectonics, you have the divergent, convergent and the transform plate boundaries. For mountain building purposes, we are leaving this apart. What we are considering is the hotspots, divergent and the convergent zones. The divergent zones are known as the rifting models, while convergent zones are considered as the real mountain building models. And both these models are covered under Wilson cycle. This we would explain only when we are done with the concept of plate tectonics and mountain building. So just for an introduction, Wilson cycle explains the opening and the closing of a ocean basin. So how ocean basin open up and finally close up would be covered under the Wilson cycle. So let's start with the first and the foremost, that is the divergent plate boundary or the rifting models. So when I say rifting models or divergent plate boundaries, I am trying to explain a phenomena that is occurring due to either tension or stretching. So whenever there is tension and stretching, it is a result of either heat or the mechanical forces that are acting onto it. So for whole of the plate tectonic session, there would be two things that would be important. Either the phenomena would be governed by heat from below, from the core of the earth, or the mechanical forces that would be driving it. So for now, we consider for divergent plate boundaries, heat and mechanical action both to act. So tension, stretching and cracking are the result of mechanical action, while heat and upwelling would be the result, would be heat driven from the interior of the earth. These lead to stretching, and finally what happens is the center block drops down, and this region is known as Garban. The surrounding region which remain up at a higher level are known as Horst, and the divergent plate boundaries result in the formation of Horst mountains. So that is one thing. Now we will move on to convergent plate boundaries. When I talk about convergent plate boundaries, when anything is converging, there can be two things that is happening. So you have two pens here, and what is happening is they are converging or coming close to one another. So there can be two phenomena that can occur. One is a head-on collision. So what we would explain is a collision phenomena. And next is this, which is weaker, might get subdued under this, or there can be a force of subduction that acts. Okay. So there would be two things under convergent plate boundaries that we would try to understand. One is subduction and other is collision. Now, our earth is made up of both continent and water. So you have, for both of these cases, we would further take two cases. So you would have continent, 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 ocean, continent, continent and continent, ocean in a very simple term. Now when we talk about subduction, you have an island arc here. A classic example would be Aleutian Island group in Japan, and you have a Cordilleran type where you have parallel series of mountains here. The classic example would be Andes and Cascade ranges. Under both these phenomena where there is subduction acting, the primary force here would be heat. So subduction forces are usually heat driven. So you have one block and the other block gets subsided below this block, and there is, where there is the region of subsidence or subduction, you would have the process of mountain building that originates here. So that is what is the subduction orogeny. The next we would try to understand is the continent ocean for collision. So we talked about subduction, the next was collision. So under collision, we would be taking the first case of continent ocean convergence. So when there is a convergence of continent and ocean, what happens? You have a ocean region, you have the mid-Atlantic region, and you have the coast here. So there is a kind of collision that acts. The point where the collision occurs is the region for the initiation of mountain building process. You have the hot fumes that are coming up, the heat that is driving up, along with the mechanical forces that are acting. So this, in contrast to subduction where it is mostly heat driven, convergence or collision processes are mostly resultant of heat as well as mechanical action. Now you have the mountain that rises in this region, and this is an example of continental ocean collision convergence. The next example that we would be covering is a continent-continent collision Best example I could say is Himalayas itself, which are resultant of continent-continent convergence. So you have continental landmass on both the sides, and due to the process of convergence here, you have the formation of Himalayan mountain range. Now here there are two blocks, one is the foreland and another is the hinterland. So hinterland is the overriding block, that means which is riding above the existing mass, while as foreland, which was considered as a rigid mass under Kober's theory, is again a overridden block here, because this remains kind of rigid and this is the mobile or the moving mass. So this is, I could say, the overriding mass, and this is the mass which is overridden. So it is a overridden mass. So foreland would be a overridden mass, in contrast to that hinterland would be an overriding mass. So these are the various concepts that we try to understand under the plate tectonics theory and how mountain building process takes place under plate tectonics. Now let's move on to another interesting concept. Once we have completed the plate tectonics theory for mountain building, we can very well appreciate the concept of Wilson cycle. Now to start with, why Wilson cycle originated? It was given by Tuzo Wilson, who lived from around 1908 to 1993, and it's a kind of a very recent concept in the field of geomorphology in contrast to the other theories that have been propounded. So where he started was the region of England and Scotland. In the region of England and Scotland, he tried to explain the intermediate ocean between the two regions was known as Epitheus. What happened during the Cladonian phase was this ocean got closed up. Finally, so that was a kind of common landmass that established here. This ocean got closed up, and finally what happened was, during the period of later Paleozoic, this region again opened up to Atlantic Ocean. So you had Atlantic Ocean here, and again there was a region that opened up here, which was the extension of the Atlantic Ocean. Now why this happened was the main idea that led Tuzo Wilson to research more. And when he researched, he gave this concept as Wilson cycle, and what he propounded was an interesting phenomena. He said, we'll move on to this diagram later. Let's try to understand it by ourselves first. So you have the volcanoes. What happens is, there is magma that rises. Once the magma rises here, what happens is, this magma flows on the surface and you have the formation of crust. This crust is formed. So the hot magma comes from inside, spreads on to the top of the earth, which leads to formation of crust. This formation of crust is accompanied by accumulation of lot of sediments. So I could say sediments get accumulated here. Once the sediments are accumulated, there is process of subduction that occurs at one end, and on the other end you have the ocean basin that closes up. So you have subduction that occurs at one end, and you have the ocean basin that opens up at the other end. So what results in this would be again crustal thinning, and this crustal thinning would again go back. So it's a kind of cycle that continuously goes on, and he propounded this cycle as the opening and closing of the ocean surfaces. So what we try to understand here is, let's try to see here. So you have rifting of the continents by mantle. So the hot magma and mantle comes, hot magma comes from inside the mantle, and you have the rifting of the continents. So the point where the magma comes in, the continent moves apart. What would happen is this would result in drifting of the continent, spreading of the ocean floor and formation of ocean basins. So I have a region or area here. You have huge volcanic activities that occur. As a result, you have drifting of the continental plates, and this region would be a region of formation of ocean basin. What would happen is this region would again, as we studied in the geosyncline theory of Kober, there would be progressive closure of the ocean, or I could say these plates, when they move, there would be subduction forces that would occur, and this subduction forces would cause the landmass here to tumble down or scumble down. That would lead to again closure of the ocean. So this ocean would again close, and this would lead to formation of a continent again. So there would be closure of ocean area and formation of continent. Once there is again a flat land of continent that is formed, again there would be hot magma that would rise up and continents would start drifting. So that's a kind of continuous cycle that keeps on happening, and that maintains the dynamic equilibrium of the earth. So this concept was trying to establish how the plate tectonic forces of mountain building lead to continuous closure and opening up of the ocean areas. So in this session we have covered the two basic fundamental theories for mountain building. The first was the geosyncline origin theory by Kober, and the plate tectonics theory for mountain building. We would be covering the set of remaining mountain building theories in the next lecture. You can subscribe to Exam Race channel for any further updates. Till then, have a good day ahead.